The transit station was louder than usual that cycle. Ships came and went like metal birds, docking and leaving with sharp hisses of air and flashing lights. Voices from many worlds mixed together into a strange hum that never stopped. The floor shook now and then when heavy cargo carriers locked into place above the main platforms. Bright signs in many languages floated in the air, guiding travelers to gates, markets, and transport rails. Mara held her son's hand tightly as they stepped off the transport lift onto Platform 12. Her daughter walked beside her, looking around with wide eyes. This was their first time leaving their colony world. Everything felt too big, too fast, and too crowded. Eli tried to twist free from his mother's grip so he could see more. He was small, curious, and full of energy. His dark hair stuck out in messy angles, and he kept turning his head to look at every alien face that passed by. Some were tall and thin with smooth gray skin. Others were wide and heavy, moving slowly on thick legs. A few floated inside clear suits filled with glowing gas. Lila laughed quietly at her brother's excitement. She carried a small handheld recorder, something she always kept with her. She liked to capture new places and new things. She wanted to show her friends back home what the galaxy looked like. "Stay close," Mara said for the third time. Her voice was calm but firm. "This place is not like home." Ellie nodded but did not really listen. His eyes were fixed on a tall alien, with long silver robes that shimmered as it walked. The being had no visible face, only a smooth mask that reflected the lights of the station. The crowd on Platform 12 began to move strangely. People shifted to the sides as if pushed by an invisible wave. Loud tones sounded from overhead speakers. The language was not human, but the message was clear. Clear the path. Several armored figures marched onto the platform from a side corridor. They were members of the station security force. Their dark armor covered them from head to toe. Heavy boots struck the floor in perfect rhythm. Each carried a long baton that hummed softly with stored energy. Travelers stepped back quickly. Some bowed their heads, others turned away to avoid attention. Mara felt tension run through her body. She pulled Eli closer. Lila stopped recording for a moment and watched. One of the officers moved ahead of the others. He was taller than the rest, his armor marked with bright symbols that showed rank. His helmet had a narrow visor that glowed faint blue. His name tag, written in the common trade language, read Rethan. Rethan did not look at the crowd as people scrambled out of his way. To him, they were only obstacles. His voice came through a loudspeaker built into his armor. "Clear the platform. Diplomatic convoy arriving. Immediate compliance required." The crowd obeyed, but slowly. There were too many people, too many bodies, and too much confusion. Some did not understand the language. Some were carrying heavy bags. Some simply moved too slowly. Rethan grew impatient. He shoved a tall merchant aside with one arm. The merchant stumbled and fell. Another officer pushed a floating traveler so hard that its suit spun in the air. Mara felt fear rise in her chest. She pulled Eli and Leela toward the edge of the platform, near a pillar. "Stand here. Don't move," she said. Eli nodded again. In his other hand he held a small toy ship made of colored plastic. It was scratched from years of play. He loved that toy and had refused to leave it behind. A sharp sound burst from overhead. A transport rail locked into place above the platform. Lights flashed red and white. The crowd tightened even more as everyone tried to move out of the way at the same time. In the sudden push from behind, Eli's toy slipped from his hand. It fell to the floor and slid a short distance toward the center of the platform. He looked at it with panic. Without thinking, he pulled free from his mother's grip and ran 2 small steps to grab it. Mara reached out. "Ellie, wait." But he was already moving. At that same moment, Rethan turned his head. His visor locked onto the small human shape that had broken from the line of bodies. To him, it was not a child. It was a problem. Stepped forward fast, raising his baton. Eli bent down to pick up his toy. His fingers closed around it just as a heavy shadow fell over him. The baton came down in a hard sideways strike meant to push him out of the way. The sound was loud and sickening. The force of the blow lifted Eli off his feet. His small body flew across the platform like a thrown doll and struck the metal floor near the far railing. His head hit first. The toy slipped from his hand again and bounced away. Everything went silent for one long second. Then Mara screamed. She ran toward her son, dropping to her knees beside him. Blood was already spreading under his head. His eyes were closed. He did not move, her recorder hanging at her side. Her mind could not understand what she had just seen. Rethan did not stop walking. He stepped over the place where Eli had been and continued forward, clearing the path with wide-arm motions. "Maintain order," his voice boomed from the speaker. "Do not obstruct security operations." Mara pressed her hands against her son's head, trying to stop the bleeding. Her voice shook as she cried for help. "Please, medical. Someone help." People around her watched but did not move. Fear held them still. No one wanted attention from the security officers. Lila suddenly snapped back to herself. She lifted her recorder and aimed it toward Rethan's back. Her hands trembled, but she kept filming. "You hurt him!" she shouted. "You hurt my brother?" Rethan turned slowly. His visor faced the girl. For a moment, the only sound on the platform was Mara's crying and the low hum of machines. Rethan walked back toward them with heavy steps. Another officer followed close behind. Mara looked up, tears running down her face. He's a child. He's just a child. There was no change in his posture, no sign of regret. "Non-compliant movement during security clearance," he said flatly. "Responsibility lies with the Guardian. You hit him. You threw him across the floor." She did not lower the device. Her voice came out thin but steady. "Everyone can see this. I'm recording." The second officer stepped toward her. "Cease recording. Hand over the device." Lila shook her head. "No." Rethan tilted his head slightly. "Detain him for obstruction." She struggled, trying not to drop the recorder. It continued to capture everything. The image shook wildly as she fought to keep hold of it. Mara did not move from Eli. "He needs help. Please." "He needs a doctor." A small medical drone finally floated in from above, drawn by the blood on the floor. It scanned Eli quickly and let out a series of urgent tones. Even then, Rethan did not kneel. He simply watched as the drone began emergency treatment. The officer pulled Lila away from her mother. The recorder slipped from her hand and slid across the floor. Its camera pointed upward, still active. The last thing it captured clearly was Eli's pale face, Mara's shaking hands, and Rethan standing over them like a dark statue. Then the view tilted sideways as the device came to rest. What no one on the platform knew was that Lila's recorder was set to autostream whenever it detected an emergency signal. The moment the medical drone began its distress call, the device sent the live feed through the station network before any signal jamming could occur. Across human settlements light years away, screens flickered on with an alert. People looked up from meals, from workstations, from sleep. They saw a crowded alien platform. They saw a small boy on the floor. They saw blood. They saw the armored officer who had done it. Back on Platform 12, Mara leaned close to Eli's face. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." The medical drone injected stabilizers and began sealing the wound. It called for a transport stretcher. Rethan turned away at last. "Remove them from the platform," he ordered. The officer who held Lila started to drag her toward the corridor. "No," she screamed. "Let me go. That's my brother." Mara looked up in horror as they tried to pull her daughter away. "She did nothing. Leave her alone." The crowd began to murmur now, but still no one stepped forward. In the distance, the diplomatic convoy arrived, sliding into place above the platform with bright lights and polished metal. Important beings stepped out, unaware that something terrible had just happened below them. Eli was lifted onto the stretcher. His small body looked too still. Mara walked beside it, refusing to leave his side. Tears kept falling down her face, but her voice grew quieter and more focused. Leela stopped fighting. She looked back toward where her recorder had fallen. She could not see it anymore. But far away, millions still could. And they were watching in complete silence. The news spread faster than anyone expected, across human colonies. The footage of the incident on Platform 12 appeared on screens in homes, workstations, and public squares. People stared in shock. Millions watched as the small boy Eli lay on the cold metal floor, blood pooling around his head. His mother Mara clutched him tightly while the alien officer Rethan walked on without a single sign of guilt. For a long moment, viewers could not breathe. It was impossible to believe. They had all heard stories of human worlds being treated unfairly, of colonies crushed by trade disputes or military force. But this was different. A child had been struck down in public, and the attacker had received praise instead of punishment. News anchors in human sectors repeated the footage. Each replay was slower, showing every detail. The tilt of Rethan's baton, the shock on the faces of other travelers, the fear that had frozen bystanders in place. Families across thousands of light years clutched their children, unable to look away. Governments scrambled, council chambers lit up with alerts and messages from colony governors. But there was an eerie calm in human fleets. No orders were sent out for retaliation. No warnings were broadcast. The silence puzzled alien analysts who had expected humans to scream, to demand justice, to fire weapons across the void. On the edge of a human-controlled system, a deep space cruiser moved silently through hyperspace. Its captain, Rowan, stood on the bridge looking at the blinking panels of communication. The room was quiet except for the hum of engines. Rowan's eyes were sharp and calm. He had been briefed only moments ago. His orders were simple but heavy. Take immediate action, but do not alert the enemy until the moment was right. "You understand the protocol?" he asked the crew. Each officer nodded. The team had trained for scenarios like this, though never had they faced one that involved a child. They moved with disciplined efficiency, running systems checks, reviewing maps, and confirming coordinates for jump points. Back on Platform 12, the station authorities tried to spin the story. Official announcements described the incident as an unfortunate accident. Security officers were commended for their efficiency in maintaining order during a high-traffic period. Rethan's face remained hidden behind the visor, but those who had access to cameras saw him nod slightly in approval of the commendation. The human networks ignored the official statements. The footage spoke louder than words. Across colonies, ordinary people began to talk quietly among themselves. They shared clips, replayed the moments, and debated what justice should look like. There was anger, yes, but there was also a deep, growing understanding that humans had the power to respond and they would choose their moment carefully. In distant chambers of alien governments, advisors argued over the human silence. "They will do nothing," one said. "They are weak. They lack honor or courage." Another disagreed. "Perhaps they are waiting. Perhaps their patience is not a lack of action, but a strategy." Neither could know what the humans were planning. They only saw calm, and they misread it as fear. Meanwhile, Captain Rowan's cruiser exited hyperspace quietly near the outer rim of the system where the station was located. Sensors picked up minor traffic, small freighters and shuttles, all unaware of the invisible fleet closing in. Rowan's crew activated their stealth fields and bypassed all automatic detection. Nothing would alert the station before the humans were ready. Inside the cruiser, communications specialists prepared encrypted channels. They made sure no alien frequency could detect their signals. Tactical officers checked each thruster, each defense system, each boarding shuttle. Not a word was wasted. Every movement was precise. No mistakes could be allowed. The aliens, on the other hand, were preoccupied with internal debates. Messages sent to the station commander were ignored. Some officers laughed at the thought that humans might intervene. "They are primitives," one said. "They do not know the rules of order." Rethan, confident in his authority, gave no thought to what might come. He walked through the corridors of the station, helmeted visor reflecting the bright lights, unaware that the humans were already moving. The footage continued to circulate. Lila's recording, combined with other civilian feeds, had gone viral. On screens in colonies far from Platform 12, millions watched in silence. They did not cheer. They did not cry out. They waited. And in that waiting, a quiet tension grew. Human fleets, once thought distant and defensive, now seemed like ghosts in the dark. Suddenly, sensors on the station detected anomalies. Small signals flickered at the edges of the system. Alien intelligence officers misinterpreted them. "Minor traffic," they said. "Private transports. Nothing to worry about." But the signals multiplied and formed patterns. Long-range readings showed dozens of human ships moving with perfect coordination. They were not transmitting, they were not broadcasting. They were approaching in complete silence. Station alarms began to sound as the pattern became clear. Council members at the station headquarters convened quickly, sending orders to alert security forces. Panic spread among the lower ranks. None of the higher officers could understand what the humans intended. They assumed a distraction, a bluff, or some routine inspection. None guessed that humans had prepared for this for years. Rowan's fleet remained undetected, closing the distance quietly. Boarding shuttles were ready, and tactical units prepared for immediate deployment. Communications were limited. Only essential commands were sent. Crew members waited, silent and tense, ready for action. The alien leadership made mistakes. They underestimated the humans. They assumed that silence meant submission. They were wrong. Human patience was not weakness. It was calculation. The galaxy would soon understand that the species they had mocked as fragile was, in fact, anything but. Back on Platform 12, the injured boy was stabilized. Mara refused to leave his side. Leela's recorder had been returned, though damaged. The footage continued to circulate, but no one dared approach the station directly. The humans would arrive, and no one knew when or how. In the command centers of the alien powers, officials began to notice the ships appearing on their long-range scans. The numbers were impossible. Formation precision was impossible. Every analyst shook their heads. The humans should have needed months to assemble this fleet. Yet here it was, perfectly coordinated and ready to act. Rethan, walking in the station corridor, heard the first faint alarm. He glanced at the nearest monitor. Tiny dots were moving closer. He frowned. Security officers looked at each other nervously. "It must be a glitch," one muttered. "Humans do not move this fast." The signals grew stronger, moving from the edge of the system to mid-range. Alarms screamed across the station, warning of incoming craft. Rethan tried to maintain order. He shouted commands. Officers scrambled, but the humans had already bypassed all detection methods. By the time the station fully realized what was happening, it was too late. Mara, still holding Eli, sensed the tension. Something was about to change. She did not understand all the details, but she could feel the air shift, heavy with anticipation and fear. Lila looked up from her recorder. "Mom," she whispered, "they're coming." From the observation decks, crew members of the station finally saw them. Human ships, sleek and silent, forming perfect arcs around the platform. No weapons fired, no signals sent. Just presence, power, discipline. Rathan stared, mouth slightly open behind the visor. His confidence faltered. The officer who had mocked the children now realized the magnitude of the situation. Humans did not need words. They did not need threats. Their movement, their preparation, their timing was a message in itself. The station began to tremble with controlled chaos. Security forces moved into defensive positions. Council members sent repeated orders, desperate to regain control. But the humans were already among them, their fleet surrounding the station, cutting off every escape route. Not a shot had been fired, not a threat had been uttered. The silence from the humans was worse than any scream. It carried authority, inevitability, and the promise of consequences that no alien power could ignore. And in that silence, the world waited, knowing the moment of reckoning had arrived. The human ships moved silently through space, forming arcs around Platform 12 with a precision that made the alien forces panic. Every hole was polished and dark, reflecting nothing, hiding the humans' true numbers and intentions. Not a shot was fired. Not a single word came from the ships. Their movement alone was enough to send fear into every officer on the station. Inside the station, alarms blared. Rethan and his officers scrambled, but the human ships bypassed all sensors and defensive systems, as if they were not even there. Energy shields flickered, control panels went offline, and automatic turrets froze mid-motion. The station's defenses, once thought impenetrable, had become useless. Mara clutched Eli, now stabilized by the medical drone, still pale and weak. Lila kept her recorder in hand, capturing every flickering warning light, every alarm tone, and the terrified faces of the officers. Her hands shook, but she did not stop recording. Rethan tried to call for reinforcements, but every channel was blocked. The humans had already taken control of communications. Panic spread among the station crew. Officers argued, shouted, and ran, but the humans did not respond. They did not need to. Their silent presence was enough. From the cruiser's bridge, Captain Rowan watched the station through long-range sensors. His eyes scanned every corridor, every control panel. Boarding teams were ready, armed but not aggressive. They moved in tight formation, waiting for the signal. Nothing could alert the aliens. Not a single step could be wasted. The aliens made mistakes. They assumed the humans would act with noise, firepower, and threats. Instead, they watched as their systems failed without warning, as their shields went down without a shot, and as their command structure crumbled silently. The human patience and preparation were terrifying. On the platform, civilians who had survived the initial chaos huddled together. Merchants, travelers, and alien workers stared at the doors and windows, seeing shadows moving across the observation panels. The humans were inside the system, and their movements were impossible to hide. Rethan's confidence faltered. He shouted commands, but the officers hesitated. No one wanted to disobey orders, but no one could make sense of the situation. The humans had bypassed every security measure without a single confrontation. The sight alone was enough to make seasoned officers tremble. The boarding shuttles descended onto the station, silent and invisible to most sensors. They carried Marines who moved like shadows. They bypassed security checkpoints, avoided cameras, and neutralized automated defenses without harming civilians. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated. There was no panic. There was no hesitation. Mara felt a strange calm as she watched from the medical area. She did not understand how they had arrived, but she felt hope. Lila kept recording, showing every corner of the station and the subtle movements of the human boarding teams. Rethan finally realized the humans were in control. He tried to gather his officers, but they were already blocked, surrounded, and unable to move freely. Fear replaced arrogance in his voice. "Report? What is happening? Who gave this order?" No one answered. The communication channels were cut off. Every officer looked around, realizing they had no backup. The humans were already among them, controlling the station without firing a single shot. Captain Rowan's team reached the main corridor leading to Rethan's office. They moved as one, stepping silently over floors and past walls that had been defended moments before. Automated security tried to respond, but humans were faster, more precise, and controlled every system remotely. Not a civilian was harmed, not a weapon was discharged. The station command attempted to lock down the corridors, but humans had already bypassed the locks. Doors opened before alarms even sounded. Systems that had been thought secure fell under human control one by one. Panic grew among the officers as they realized the scale of the operation. They were not just outnumbered. They were outmatched in speed, skill, and strategy. Mara's heart raced as she watched the humans pass through the station with deadly precision. She held Eli closer, whispering words of comfort. Lila's recorder captured every second of it, the silent power of the humans, the chaos of the alien officers, and the fear that Rethan could no longer hide. The humans moved closer to Rethan. He raised his baton, trying to appear in control, but his movements were stiff and uncertain. He realized he could not fight them. His officers froze, unwilling to act. The humans surrounded the corridor, their presence like an invisible wall of authority. One of the humans stepped forward, calm and measured. The officer's voice was quiet but carried in the corridor. "Step aside. No harm will come to civilians. Your actions will be addressed." Rethan swallowed hard. He realized that for the first time he was powerless. The humans had arrived silently, efficiently, and with no threats. His arrogance had failed him. His confidence was gone. The boarding team reached him, surrounding him without weapons drawn. Their presence alone communicated their strength. Rethan's officers looked on, unsure whether to fight or surrender. The humans had made the choice for them. Resistance was pointless. Mara watched from the distance, tears filling her eyes. She did not understand everything, but she felt a surge of relief. The humans had come. They had arrived for Eli. The quiet, deadly force of humans was impossible to ignore. No one had to fire a shot. No one had to threaten. Their discipline and precision were enough. Rethan tried to step back, raising his baton again, but a human officer moved in front of him. A calm hand gesture, no words, no violence. The message was clear. Stop. The station had never seen this before. Officers whispered, "They are stronger than us, faster than us, smarter than us." Panic replaced arrogance, and every previous act of control crumbled. But the human boarding teams moved through the station like shadows, securing key points, ensuring no civilian was harmed, and heading straight for Rethan. Every step was planned, every action precise. Mara and Lila continued to watch, safe in the knowledge that humans had arrived, not just to punish, but to protect. Rethan's pride crumbled. He had ruled this platform with fear and authority, yet now he stood surrounded, powerless, and facing consequences he could not imagine. The humans had arrived silently, moved with perfect efficiency, and taken control without a single shot. The officers around him began to surrender, knowing resistance was meaningless. Mara held Eli tightly, tears running freely. Lila continued recording, capturing every detail of this moment of human power and control. The scene was unforgettable, terrifying, and inspiring all at once. And in the quiet corridors of Platform 12, humans moved as one, unstoppable and deliberate. They did not shout. They did not fire. They simply took control, and the station for the first time realized the full meaning of human discipline and deadly precision. Rethan was taken to a secure holding chamber in the station. The humans moved silently, surrounding him from every side. Not a single civilian was harmed. Not a single officer dared to intervene. Rethan's baton had been removed, and his confidence had vanished. For the first time he faced beings who were not afraid of him, beings who did not need to raise weapons or shout commands to assert control. Mara and Lila stayed near Eli, who was recovering slowly, but still pale and weak. The humans made sure he was safe before focusing on Rethan. There was a strange calm in the medical area, a quiet power that Mara could feel. The humans moved with a purpose that made the officers around them nervous. Every motion was precise, deliberate, and controlled. Rethan sat on the floor, staring at the humans in front of him. He had spent years enforcing rules, spreading fear, and asserting authority over weaker species. Now he was helpless. He had underestimated humans as he had always underestimated the small and seemingly weak. He realized, too late, that humans were not fragile. A human officer stepped forward. Her face was calm, and her voice was even. "You understand why you are here," she said. Rethan nodded slowly. His pride was gone. I followed orders," he stammered. "I maintained discipline." "Discipline is not cruelty. Strength is not violence. You struck a child. That action has consequences." Rethan looked down, unable to argue. The words carried weight. He felt a fear he had never known before. The humans around him did not move aggressively, but he knew he could not resist. He was not just facing authority, he was facing something ancient, instinctive, and unstoppable. The humans explained calmly that, on their world, harming children triggered a deep biological response. It was instinctive, older than any civilization, older than any law. Their species evolved under harsh conditions, in environments that demanded survival, precision, and strength. A child harmed was a signal that could not be ignored. Rethan tried to speak to defend himself, but the humans did not raise weapons. They did not threaten. They simply explained, and the weight of their explanation pressed down on him. He realized that this was not personal revenge. This was a lesson, a demonstration of human principles, and an example to the galaxy. The station officers watched in disbelief. They had never seen humans act like this. They expected rage, weapons, and loud threats. Instead, the humans were calm, methodical, and terrifyingly efficient. Every move was measured. Every word carried authority. Not one officer dared to intervene. Captain Rowan approached Rethan, standing silently beside his team. His eyes were steady. His presence alone communicated power. "You have a choice," he said. "You will face the consequences of your actions. We do not act out of hatred. We act because there is a principle greater than fear or pride. Harm to our young is unacceptable." "You violated that principle." Rethan bowed his head. There was no more arrogance, no more defiance. He was entirely aware of his weakness and their strength. The humans moved around him, securing the station further, ensuring that no other officer could interfere. Their precision was perfect, their calm absolute. It was as if the station itself obeyed them. The civilians on the platform watched in awe and fear. Mara held Eli close, feeling a sense of relief and gratitude. Lila continued to record everything, capturing the subtle movements, the calm authority, and the terrifying presence of the humans. Every gesture, every glance, and every command was clear. This was power beyond weapons, beyond numbers. It was controlled, unstoppable human will. Rethan was guided to a small shuttle within the station. The humans remained silent as they secured him. He had no chance to resist. He had no chance to negotiate. Every plan he had relied on, every advantage he thought he had, was nullified. The humans were complete in control, precise in action, and deliberate in their decisions. The shuttle doors closed and it lifted smoothly from the station. The humans had already set the course, a straight path toward the Galactic Council. The alien command tried to respond, sending repeated messages, warnings, and orders. None were answered. The human silence was deliberate, chilling, and filled with unspoken authority. Inside the shuttle, Rethan finally looked at the humans directly. There was no anger in their eyes. There was no hatred. There was something deeper, something that spoke to instinct, evolution, and survival. He understood now that he had faced a force that would not be swayed by excuses, threats, or authority. He had faced a species that would act with patience, precision, and inevitability. Mara and Lila remained on the platform, watching as the shuttle disappeared. The humans had ensured Eli's safety before focusing on the lesson that had to be delivered. The station was calm now, subdued. Officers whispered to each other, fear evident in their voices. They had underestimated humans, and they now understood their mistake. Captain Rowan's team returned to the cruiser, silent and disciplined. Every crew member moved with perfect timing, ensuring no civilian or unnecessary force was used. The operation was complete, the lesson delivered, and the principle enforced. Rethan's removal was not a declaration of war. It was a controlled response to an unforgivable act. In distant systems, human colonies received updates. The incident, the action taken, and the recovery of Eli were broadcast carefully, emphasizing that humans did not act recklessly. They acted with principle. The galaxy began to notice a shift. The species once thought minor, weak, or primitive had shown discipline, efficiency, and a level of control that could not be ignored. Rethan understood his failure fully. The humans had taken him alive, taught the lesson without unnecessary violence, and demonstrated a capability he could not hope to match. He would carry the weight of this encounter for the rest of his life. Every officer who had doubted humans now feared them. Back on the platform, Mara held Eli, feeling his small chest rise and fall with each weak breath. Lila's recorder captured the moment. Not the violence, but the quiet power of humans acting with purpose. The calm authority, the discipline, and the inevitability of human action was clear to all who watched. The humans had shown that strength was not measured in weapons or noise. Strength was precision, patience, and principle. They had acted without chaos, without unnecessary destruction, yet the message was clear. Harm to human children had consequences. There was no question, no negotiation, no denial. It was a law older than the galaxy, written in the very nature of the species. And as the shuttle carrying Rethan moved closer to the Galactic Council, every being in the galaxy would soon understand that humans did not make threats lightly. When humans acted, even in silence, the consequences were absolute, precise, and unavoidable. The shuttle approached the Galactic Council capital slowly, moving with precision through the void of space. Inside, Rethan sat silently, fully aware of what awaited him. He had been removed from power, stripped of authority, and guided into the hands of a species he had underestimated completely. Every step of this operation had been calculated, controlled, and executed with chilling efficiency. Mara and Eli remained on Platform 12, finally safe after the terrifying ordeal. Eli rested against his mother, pale but alive, his small hands gripping hers tightly. Lila's recorder had captured every moment, the fear, the calm authority of humans, and the quiet, unstoppable power they wielded without weapons. The footage had already spread through human networks, reaching millions, showing the world the cost of harming a child. The human fleet had already returned to patrol positions around the station, maintaining order and ensuring no further harm could come to civilians. They moved with discipline, silent, efficient, and deliberate, reminding all who saw them that humans were not just a species to be underestimated. In the council chambers, alarm bells rang. Representatives from dozens of alien races gathered, whispering urgently among themselves. Screens displayed the approaching shuttle, and the council members struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. The humans were coming, silent, disciplined, and in full control of their prisoner. There was no threat of war, no aggressive maneuvers, just inevitable action. Rethan knew it awaited him. He had been given no warning, no trial, no opportunity to plead or explain himself. The humans had already determined the consequence of his actions. He had struck a child, he had underestimated a species, and now he was about to be made an example of. The shuttle docked silently. Humans stepped into the grand hall of the council chambers, unarmed, disciplined, and precise. Their movements were deliberate. Their presence alone commanded attention. Council members froze, unsure whether to flee or confront them. Every officer and diplomat sensed the weight of history pressing down on the room. At the center of the chamber, the humans placed a sealed container on the floor. No words were spoken. All eyes followed as the container was opened. Inside was the head of Rethan, preserved and displayed without cruelty, yet unmistakably complete. The sight shocked the council. Gasps, whispers, and stunned silence filled the room. No one had expected such a statement. No one had prepared for this form of authority. The human ambassador finally spoke, his voice calm but firm, echoing through the hall. This is not an act of war. This is not vengeance. This is a demonstration of consequence. You have seen the cost of harming our young. You have seen the discipline, patience, and precision of our species. Let this be understood by all. He gestured toward a screen that displayed footage of Eli, now stabilized, safe, and alive. Mara and Lila appeared briefly, safe in the protection of human care. The council members were forced to watch the proof that the humans acted with control, not recklessness, and that their actions were principled, deliberate, and unavoidable. The silence that followed was profound. No one moved. No one dared speak. The presence of humans in the council chambers, their calm authority, and the clarity of their actions left no room for doubt. They had demonstrated capability, control, and consequence without chaos or unnecessary violence. The message was simple, yet impossible to ignore. Humans do not tolerate harm to their children. Across the galaxy, news of the event spread like wildfire. Aliens who had previously underestimated humans reconsidered their assumptions. Colonies and trade partners reassessed human strength, discipline, and influence. The species once considered minor had made their authority undeniable. The galaxy was forced to acknowledge that humans could act decisively, with precision, and without warning, when their principles were violated. Council members whispered among themselves, realizing that the humans had set a new standard. The incident on Platform 12, the removal of Rethan, and the display at the council had transformed the perception of human power. No one had fired a single shot, yet the authority of humans was unquestioned. The lesson was clear. Harm to a human child triggers a response older than law, older than diplomacy, and older than fear. In the following days, new protocols were established across the galaxy. Trade, diplomacy, and interactions with humans were carefully reconsidered. Alien leaders who had previously treated humans as minor participants began to show caution and respect. The humans had spoken without words, acted without aggression, and imposed consequences with discipline. The galaxy understood the message, and no species could claim ignorance. Mara and Eli returned to their home colony, still shaken but safe. Lila's recordings continued to circulate, showing every step of the human operation, reinforcing the message. Humans had shown that patience, strategy, and precision could deliver justice without chaos. Their presence had been enough to control the station, remove the offender, and deliver the lesson directly to the heart of alien power. Rethan, now under secure containment, understood the full extent of his failure. He had misjudged humans at every turn. He had thought them weak, incapable, and easily intimidated. Instead, they had moved with silent authority, decisive action, and calm precision, delivering consequences in a way that none of his species could challenge. The humans left the council chambers without delay, unarmed, disciplined, and silent. Their purpose was complete. Message was delivered. The consequences had been made clear. The galaxy would remember this demonstration. Every being who witnessed it knew that humans were no longer to be underestimated. And across the stars, one principle became clear. Never harm a human child, for the response may come silently, without warning, and with the inevitability of nature itself. The humans had not shouted. They had not fired. They had simply acted. And in their action, they had rewritten the rules for the galaxy, leaving an unmistakable mark of respect, fear, and awe that would last for generations.